Good afternoon, and welcome to ESA's new member webinar series. Today on publications, peer reviews, editors, and authors. I'm Rosina Romano, and I'm the Director of Meetings and Membership, and I'm here to make a couple quick announcements before we get started today. As a reminder, you're part of today's webinar, but we have a great webinar series coming up and a lot of great content coming up soon, including next week some lessons learned on teaching etymology online. Next month's new member webinar series will be about maximizing your membership, looking at ESA's hidden gems and how to update your profile and learn more of some things that are a little bit hidden on our website. We're going to make those uncovered for you. And then we'll be hosting our State of the Society webinar with our Executive Director, Chris Felzig, and President Michelle Smith to talk about everything going on this year. As you know, all of our branch meetings will be meeting virtually this year, and 3 of them kick it off on the same platform, starting March 22nd with the Eastern branch, followed the following week by Southeastern branch, and the Pacific branch the following week after that. And so when you register for one, you register for them all. They're free to any member to join. Lots of live content, live symposia, 10-minute talks, etymology games, kind of all the traditional things you'll see at the annual meeting or at their branch meeting, just reformatted for the virtual content. So definitely register. There's no reason not to. It's free for you. And then you can kind of check out what all the branches are doing in one place, which will be really fun. The international branch, similarly, will be hosting their virtual meeting. That is free as well. It's on a slightly different platform. And that will be at the end of April. They have 9 plenary speakers across 3 topic areas and are accepting about 45 poster submissions this week as we speak. So check out their program. That's promising to be really great, as it is every year, and free for members as well. And we have opened our award submissions for honorary nominations, fellows, and founders memorial lecture. Those will be due April 19th. It's on a new platform, and so we have a helpful tutorial video that you can search for on the awards piece to see how to navigate the new site, with a reminder that all our traditional professional awards, student awards, and ECP awards will be due June 1st. And then the annual meeting is coming up this October. We're going to start on October 31st, so plan to bring your Halloween costume. The program committee has just selected 7 outstanding symposia that will kick off the program, and they're reviewing all the section member organized meetings and workshops that have come in as well right now. And we anticipate opening papers and poster submissions next week with a deadline of June 14th. So stay tuned what's happening with the annual meeting, with the ability to present both in person in Denver and virtually online if you don't want to come out and join us. So thank you. And now I will turn it over to Matt Hudson, ESA's Director of Publications, Communications, and Marketing, to introduce the panel for today.
Great, thank you, Rosina. As Rosina said, I'm Matt Hudson, ESA's Director of Publications, Communications, and Marketing. Thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to our discussion. Let me start off by just saying, I believe you can submit questions at any time during the webinar, and we'll get to those at the end. There should be sort of a toolbar on the right-hand side. That's where it typically appears. Now let me introduce our panelists. Can we get to the next slide? There we go. First up, we have Josh Lancette. Josh is ESA's managing editor. He's responsible for all 8 of our scholarly journals. Prior to joining ESA, Josh worked with Henry Hagedorn at the University of Wisconsin on the Journal of Insect Science. Josh also serves as the staff liaison on ESA's Common Names Committee. Next up, we have Angelita Acebes-Doria. She's an assistant professor of entomology at the University of Georgia. She's been a subject editor for environmental entomology since 2019 and has reviewed and authored many papers for ESA. Unfortunately, Angel is unable to join us live today, so we have recorded her portion of the webinar, and we'll get to that later in the program. Next slide. Cesar Rodriguez-Saona is a professor at Rutgers University's P.E. Marucci Blueberry and Cranberry Center. Cesar has been very active with ESA, serving on a variety of committees, and also as well as president of the Eastern Branch. He's a subject editor for both the Journal of Insect Science and the Journal of Economic Entomology. And then Rebecca Trout Tryxell is an associate professor with the University of Tennessee. She's currently vice president of the MOVE section. Becky has served on the Science Policy Writing Committee on Tick-Borne Diseases and as subject editor and chair of the editorial board for the Journal of Medical Entomology. Like Angel and Cesar, She has also published and reviewed many papers with ESA. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to begin here with a quick poll. The question is, how many articles have you published in an ESA journal? So the poll is open. You can go ahead and input your answer, and we'll see the results. Give everyone a few moments here. Okay. Let's see what kind of results we have. All right, so it looks like the majority of our presenters have published 0 to 5 papers with ESA, and that's kind of what we expected. I think a lot of the information that we're going to be sharing today is for people earlier in their career, so this all sounds good. Next slide, please. All right, so to get things started, we're going to provide sort of a broad overview of ESA's publications, and then we'll get into some more of the roles like author, reviewer, and editor. I'll start off by saying that ESA was founded in 1889, but we didn't begin publishing until 1908. We are a nonprofit, member-based society, which means that publication revenue helps support all of the other programs and products that we're involved in. This makes us somewhat unique compared to a commercial publisher where revenue and profits go back to shareholders or owners or other stakeholders. As a member-based society, we are also run by our members. So that happens through groups like the governing board, the executive committee, publications council, and our editorial boards. So with that in mind, I guess you could say I have a lot of bosses because all of those people and really all of our members help to determine the direction of our publications. Now I'm going to hand things over to Josh. Josh, can you quickly describe ESA's 8 journals and our member magazine?
Absolutely. In the world of scientific publishing, you have hundreds of publications to choose to read, to submit your articles to, or to volunteer with. And so how can you differentiate between all of them? It can be quite overwhelming. So here's a quick 2-minute summary of what makes each of our publications here at ESA unique. I'll start with our member magazine, which is called American Entomologist. American Entomologist is sent to ESA members as a benefit of membership, a free print copy to ESA members in the US or Canada. If you're outside the US or Canada, all you would need to do is pay for shipping. And all members have access to American Entomologist online. American Entomologist articles are written in a style that's approachable and story-driven. So we're not looking for research in this magazine, we're looking for stories, the kind of articles you'd expect to read if you picked up your favorite magazine at a newsstand. We have 2 other publications that hold kind of unique places in our portfolio. Arthropod Management Tests is an editor-reviewed journal, and it publishes short reports on single efficacy tests. We also have the Journal of Integrated Pest Management, which is a peer-reviewed journal that doesn't publish original research, but focuses instead on extension-focused articles, such as pest profiles, case studies, or management recommendations, and a few other article types as well. Next, we have 6 more traditional peer-reviewed journals. The Journal of Insect Science is our broad-based open access journal, and it's celebrating 20 years of publishing this year. JIS was really on the forefront of the open access movement. It started publishing several years before many of the more well-known open access publishers did. If you're not familiar with the term open access, it means that papers are free to read and download, and they also typically have a Creative Commons license that's associated with them. I'll also note that Arthropod Management Tests and the Journal of Integrated Pest Management are also fully open access. We then have 5 hybrid journals, which means you need a subscription, be at an institution with a subscription, or be an ESA member in order to read them. But they also have options for authors to choose an open access license. So both subscription content and free content in the same journal, hence the term hybrid. These journals are Annals of the Entomological Society of America, which is our oldest journal. It started publishing in 1908, as Matt mentioned. Environmental Entomology covers topics related to the interactions of insects and the environment. The Journal of Economic Entomology is our largest journal, and it's also the most cited journal in entomology. Next, we have the Journal of Medical Entomology, which focuses on papers about insects that affect human and animal health. And then our newest journal, Insect Systematics and Diversity, which launched in 2017, and it will be indexed in the Web of Science in Scopus this summer. As a benefit of membership, ESA members get online access to all of our journals, and they also get significant discounts on publishing charges or can request full or partial waivers. Our partner in publishing is Oxford University Press, so you'll see a lot of our journal sites and content co-branded with ESA and Oxford. And then overall, one thing that really makes our publications portfolio as a whole unique is that when you support them through volunteering or through authoring, you are supporting entomology. We're member run, and as Matt mentioned, our revenues go back to supporting society initiatives. These are your journals as members, and investing in them will create more value for you as a member and ultimately as an entomologist. So Matt, I've mentioned things like open access here. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in the broader publishing industry?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Broadly speaking, we're seeing more content being published today than ever before, and it's being published faster. A lot of the limits that we used to encounter in the past have disappeared. I mean, readership is global now, authors are global, and there's just a lot of evolution happening in the industry as technology improves, the research and discovery process. It's an exciting time to be involved in scholarly publishing. And as you noted, probably the biggest change that we're seeing right now is the transition to open access. As you said, we have 3 open access journals right now. Currently, open access still makes up a smaller percentage of articles, roughly 30% across all of the sciences, but it's the fastest growing segment in scholarly publishing. And we're definitely seeing, more and more push from authors, governments, and funding agencies to make content freely available. So that's something that we're adapting to and looking at, and that's really driving a lot of creativity in terms of peer review models and business models. All right, next slide, please. So now we're going to kind of move away from discussing ESA's publications as a whole, and we're going to start talking about some of the volunteer opportunities that are available with our publications. Josh made this nice chart here. Josh, can you walk us through what this chart shows us?
Absolutely. So some of these opportunities our panelists will touch on in the webinar. So we thought we'd start with some definitions about kind of what they are and what stages of a career people would need to be at in order to volunteer in these capacities. So the first is a peer reviewer. A peer reviewer is someone who's invited by an editor to review and submit comments on a paper. A peer reviewer is looking to make sure that the science in the paper is sound, that the conclusions are supported by the results. We like to have at least 2 reviews for each paper, so we're always in need of people willing to be peer reviewers. In a given year, we have several thousand people who peer review for us. Our editors also will often report that the hardest part of the review process is finding people who are willing to review. Relatedly, an associate editor is sort of a super reviewer. These are people who have formal appointments with the journal, and they've agreed to review more papers than a normal reviewer. These people often then transition into subject editor roles, which I'll talk about in a bit. Next, we have special collections or symposia. So in our journals, we often publish special collections of articles. These are articles on a similar topic. Often these come out of symposia at ESA meetings or at other scientific conferences. Anyone can submit a proposal to our journals for a special collection. We currently have a number of special collections that were organized by students, and those students are acting as guest editors along with an existing subject editor, so they can learn about the editorial process and learn how to be a subject editor. All 3 of these opportunities are open to people early in their careers, including students. So if that describes you, consider throughout this webinar if you'd like to volunteer in any of these capacities. Next, we have subject editors. These are people who are subject experts for the journal. They invite people to review papers, and they make decisions whether to accept or reject papers. This position carries a lot of responsibility with deciding whether or not papers get published. And so we usually look for people who are more in the mid-career stage. Subject editors can also be members of the editorial board of the journal, which is a group that supports the editor-in-chief in setting journal policies and strategic direction. Next are our editors-in-chief, which I just mentioned. These volunteers do a lot. They review each paper that comes in to assess its general appropriateness for the journal. They assign papers to subject editors, they recruit subject editors, they follow up on papers that are delayed, help set journal policies and strategic direction, and lots more. This is a big time commitment, so we typically look for someone who is mid-career or a senior level professional. And then finally, while not really a volunteer opportunity per se, anyone at any career stage can be an author.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Josh. All right, now we're going to talk to Becky and Cesar and Angel to kind of take a deeper dive into some of these roles. Becky, let's start with you. Can you talk about how you got started with reviewing and what were some of the obstacles you had to go through or get through to be more comfortable in this role as a reviewer?
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and thanks everybody for coming and listening. I guess it was my graduate school advisors who were really the big pushers for me to become a better writer, and to become a better writer, it involved reviewing other manuscripts. They were the ones who really helped in that aspect. They would get asked to review something and they would kind of give it to me and then go over it with me as well. Yeah, you asked something else too, right? Some of the obstacles. For me, it was my confidence. To be honest, I really didn't have a lot of confidence as a graduate student, and even to this day, it's just something we're always working on. And really, it was my written English that was pretty hard for me. I had one person tell me that, actually they asked me if I knew how to read, and then another person even, right, and then another person didn't think I could actually write at all. That goes to show you though how valuable it is to review different articles, because as you do it, the more you do it, the more you learn and the better you'll get.
That's great advice, thanks. And now, Becky, you've also been a subject editor for the Journal of Medical Entomology for a number of years now. Can you talk about what you see as the benefits of serving as an editor, and what kind of skills you think are important for someone who's interested in that type of role?
Yeah, so as I mentioned like a moment ago, that my confidence wasn't where it was and where it could be or should be. As a subject editor, I really like helping others, and I get to help other scientists get their science out there into the world. I think that's really probably the best part. I like reading the new science that's out there, the new techniques and technologies. I even like learning the new statistics that are being developed, the different R packages that I had never heard about, and running those ideas past the different reviewers. When it comes to the skills as a subject editor, it's really, being patient, being, kind of a bit, I don't want to say, yeah, it's being patient when it comes to finding the right reviewer. That part's been kind of challenging. So it's really important, to know that in 2 weeks somebody might say yes, is another way to put it. And having the patience more right now during a pandemic is even more important, and kind of giving people the flexibility for what they need to do, and even the authors too. The other thing that it's helped me with is a bit of conflict resolution. So when you have two reviewers who are disagreeing with something, and maybe even an author who disagrees, you kind of have to put your subject editor hat on and say, what is the best way to go forward with all of this? And that's been kind of fun for me to learn and get better at.
That's great feedback, thanks. Okay, Cesar, how about we switch over to you? You've had a prolific career as an author and presenter. I think 130 peer-reviewed publications, 16 book chapters, and well over 100 presentations at scientific meetings. To start, can you talk about that experience and maybe what the difference is between a meeting presentation and a publication?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, and all of the attendees for coming to the webinar today. Yeah, an important difference is exposure. I think a published paper will be read and likely seen by far many more people than when you're giving a presentation. Also, a presentation is going to last a lifetime. Once it's published, it's going to be visible forever, while a presentation is short-lasting, so it's not going to be, your presentation is going to be short period, and it's not only a few people are going to see it, whereas paper is going to be there for a long period of time.
Great, thanks. What are two of the aspects of writing for scientific journals that really excites you?
Well, one of the things that I enjoy doing is working with early scientists, including my students and postdocs, through the whole process of writing and publishing their work. I think it's exciting to see, getting the publication done. It's kind of like from the beginning, from starting the project until the end point when they publish their paper, their work. Also, I like the exposure it provides when you're publishing your work. I like people to read and also learn and hopefully appreciate the work that we're doing in my lab.
Good points, thank you. And Becky, what about you? What do you enjoy about writing for scholarly publications?
For me, the things I like the most about writing, specifically for the scholarly publications, is the fact that it's the final step of the scientific method. There's been so much work that goes into doing the science, and so many obstacles that occur, with successes, wins, and failures. But when you finally see it out there, it's there. And then eventually you might get that one email from someone on the other side of the world who's actually read your paper and they want to work together with you, or somebody from a completely different discipline. And that's always that's what's exciting to me, is when that happens. And if you don't write it and publish it, did you even do it, is the other part. And so for me, it's like, look, I did it. That's what I've done today. It's hard to think that 3 years of work goes into 6 pages of publication. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Switching back to the editor role, Becky, could you talk about what some of your favorite things are about working on the editor side of a scientific journal?
Yeah. So my favorite parts about being a subject editor is trying to help other scientists get the work done and out there. That by far is my favorite part. And then kind of the sneaky part that I kind of really like about it is knowing that reviewer number 2 is very likely a graduate student, because they know things inside and out that a lot of the senior faculty and scientists might not know. Reviewer number 2 is most often a graduate student. I love that.
That's good. That's an inside secret there. Cesar, what about you? What are 2 of your favorite things about working on the editor side of a scientific journal?
I think it's a great experience. I like, well, first of all, I like the recognition. I think, it feels good to be appreciated by your peers. I like the fact that I'm providing an important service to my society. And also, it obviously looks good in your CV. So it's very good for when you get promoted in your university. I also get to read a lot of papers. So I enjoy reading the work that is being done by other colleagues. I like learning, current things being done. Also some techniques, as Becky said, sometimes you read something that is new to you, that you might go back and look, especially like statistics, some new technologies that are being developed in your field. So I really enjoy, it's a lot of work. I'm not going to deny it. You have to read a lot of papers in a week, but yeah, it's you get a lot of satisfaction in doing it.
Great, good feedback. All right, next slide, please. We're going to do one more audience poll here. And the question is, would being a peer reviewer benefit your career? Let's go ahead and choose one of the options. And while everyone's entering their answer there, I'll just do another reminder that you can submit questions at any time. We've already had good ones submitted, which we'll get to at the end. You should be able to submit those, I believe, using the toolbar that's typically on the right side of your screen. We'll give this one more minute, and then we will get to Angel. All right, we could probably close the poll and see what the results look like. All right, we have a lot of enthusiasm for volunteering as a reviewer. And in just a little bit, we'll give some more instructions about how to get involved as a reviewer. But right now, let's jump to the interview with Angel. She's going to talk to us about how she got involved in reviewing and what she sees as some of the benefits. So can we get the recording of that interview, please? Hi, Angel. Welcome to the webinar. For your first question, I wanted to find out, how did you get started volunteering with ESA's publications?
Thank you, Matt, for having me here. I started as a reviewer for ESA journals when I was still a PhD student, right after I published my first article in the Environmental Entomology Journal. I did not know then, however, that I can volunteer as a student reviewer until I got that email request. Now, as a faculty member, I make it a point to reach out to grad students and students in general to let them know of this volunteer opportunity, as it has been very beneficial for me.
That's great. And can you talk some more about that? How has volunteering benefited you?
Great question there. So volunteering as a reviewer gives me the opportunity to stay updated in the current research trends, not just in my study area, but also in the bigger entomology and, in my case, ecology research arenas. I've also become more familiar with the different institutions, researchers, and the respective research areas in the US as well as internationally. As a researcher myself, reviewing other people's work helps me in honing my critical thinking skills and in learning new research techniques that I can apply in my own research projects.
Perfect, thank you. Now, you've also authored one of our most frequently cited articles in an ESA journal. And what advice do you have for others who want to publish?
Another interesting question there, but I have to say a disclaimer here. Given my status as an early career author, these are my humble thoughts on this question. First is pursuing research projects that you are genuinely interested in, and the subsequent work and writing process become a lot easier. Second, reminding yourself every time you experience a writer's block, which I can speak for myself, I do experience, that our research findings deserve to be published and that it offers relevant information that are useful for other researchers, for our stakeholders, for science and society in general.
That's great. Let's see. Did you want to speak about publishing articles that, generates broad interest?
Oh, yes. So I do have a note to myself to kind of talk about this as well. There was a question before that was raised by one of my co-authors as to how we can write articles that would generate interest from a broader audience. And so I'm thinking that thinking about the bigger picture helps in framing a research article in such a way that would generate interest from a broader and wider audience. Research that are, of course, cutting edge, as well as those that address current and pressing issues and which involve multi-institutional collaborations and multidisciplinary approaches seem to get a lot of interest from readers as well. And lastly, we should, as scientists, not shy away from promoting our research work either through social media, academic websites, or through professional listservs.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you. And speaking of advice, what other advice do you have for early career authors or those that are interested in becoming reviewers?
Personally, I consider volunteering as a reviewer and now as a subject editor for ESA as a productive way to serve and contribute to the scientific community, which I am proud to be a part of. So I strongly encourage students and early career professionals to be active and productive members of the scientific community. Reach out to ESA or to the editors of the journals and let them know that you're interested to review. We could certainly benefit from having more willing and excellent reviewers.
That's great. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate that plug. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and input.
I'm glad to be here, Matt. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Okay, that's the end of Angel's interview. And thank you for advancing to this last slide. I really like Angel's feedback there about how your research deserves to be published. You know, to me, that just really captures the essence of so much. So we're going to get to questions here in just a minute, but before we do that, Josh, can you talk about what we have on the screen here and how members can get more involved in volunteering for ESA's publications?
Absolutely. So if you're feeling inspired to get involved, one way to do that is to take a very short survey. It lists some of our volunteer opportunities available that we've talked about today and our journals that you might be interested in volunteering for. So you can just select what you're interested in doing, and then we can contact you with more information. We'll send out the survey by email to all the attendees here today, or you can use your phone just to scan this QR code that's on the screen right now, and that will take you directly to the survey. I also wanted to reiterate what Angel had said, that in particular in regards to reviewing, if you're interested in reviewing and if you have an advisor or a professor, talk to them about your interest in reviewing, and they can most likely include you on peer review invitations that they get. They can either suggest you as a reviewer or work on the review with you together.
That's great. Thanks, Josh. Okay, we have a couple audience questions here. And I think these are both probably suited to you, Becky and Cesar. We'll start with the first one. How do early and mid-career professionals have time to, or how do you find the time to work as an associate or subject editor? You know, any tips on fitting this all into your work week?
Yeah, I'll answer that question. So how do I find time? That is the $1 million question. For me, I actually just put it on my calendar. I'm very Outlook, Google Calendar friendly, and so I just block out a calendar, a bit of time on Saturdays, and I do that while I drink my morning coffee, to be honest.
Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can. Yeah, go ahead, Cesar.
Great. Same with Becky. Like I think you have to plan, to have some time during the week that you dedicate to read the papers and go through the reviews and also like make your decision. So every week I spend some time during that week to review papers. So you just have to organize yourself and dedicate some time in a week for that role.
Yeah, that said, I want to add that I'm very firm on how much time it is. So I try not to put too much time onto it, to be honest, because it is a service that I want to give back to the society and to the science.
Good advice. The next question is publishing research less important if you're planning to pursue a career in extension?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I think publishing your science is really important, whether it's in a peer-reviewed article like our ESA journals, specifically because there was taxpayer dollars associated with it. I think it's really important to make sure that if somebody contributed time, effort, and money to something, that it gets fulfilled. So I think it should go the whole way. And honestly, that should go two ways, also into the extension literature as well.
And my appointment is 70% extensions, 30% research. And a lot of my colleagues, get surprised when I tell them how much extension I have, and I enjoy doing the extension. I think it's great, to have that interaction with the growers and actually do research that can be applied in agriculture. But you're always going to be judged by the number of publications. That's what the scientific community is going to judge you for. That's what is going to be read by your peers. And also when you go for promotion, that's a key number that you are going to be evaluated by. I think it's important to balance both. Make sure that you publish your work And I publish some basic research and also some applied research. So I try to do both.
Great, we're getting some great questions here. The next one is, can you talk about some of the criteria that you use to select reviewers? I think people want to know a little more about what that process is like and what the criteria are. Why don't we start with you, Becky?
So criteria for selecting reviewers. So when a person submits their article for review, I hope that they've identified, 1 to 3 people as a reviewer, and I will select, at least one person from that list, especially if I think it's a good fit. I will do that. But then I also want to make sure I get somebody outside from that circle potentially. So I go to the internet and I search for people who've published in similar ways or someplace else. There is a way for us within the like the reviewer portal to kind of try to identify someone, but sometimes it's hard. And so it's really just trying to find somebody out there who's a really good fit for it based upon previous publications or presentations in science and stuff.
So I follow the same tips that Becky just gave, but in addition, one thing that I do is first I download the paper and then look at the abstract, kind of scan it through, and then look at the references. So I looked at the authors that people are citing in the paper. So that's like an important tip, like when you write a paper, that most likely the editors are going to be looking at the people that you're citing. So I look for those names that are key in the references, and then I do a Google search. I use ResearchGate a lot for this. I look at how many papers the person has published in that So it takes a little bit of time looking for those reviewers. And also, if somebody doesn't have the time to review a paper, they make suggestions also. So I usually take those suggestions too.
Great, good feedback. Let's see, another question here is, this person says, they're an early career professional, and they would like to volunteer as a reviewer. And they want to know, they said they're not able to get a head start apart from showing interest. So what are some of the other options they can do? So I guess I'll say the approach that Josh outlined, will get you in our reviewer database and make you discoverable there and allow you to enter some subject areas that you feel you're strong in. Any other advice from you, Becky or Cesar? I know we also talked about people reaching out to their advisors and trying to get involved in that process. Anything else that we've missed?
For someone who is getting started, I think you could potentially just email one of the editors in chief. Let them know, who you are, maybe send them a CV, however, big or short it is. But really it's, taking that initiative, which is kind of hard and challenging at times, but, just letting people know you're there, because it's, especially now that we don't get to see each other or meet, that's really one of the only ways that we can know you're there, that you can do it. I'm very excited that someone's very interested in this and wants to do it though. Thank you.
And I would say just also be patient, because if you're going to be publishing papers, we're always looking for reviewers. So so the more you published on a subject, it's likely that you're going to be asked eventually to be a reviewer. So just be patient, but start by asking your advisor to review some papers. Get used to reviewing, the process of reviewing. What we look for in those reviews. That's kind of important.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that. When it comes to time, because it goes back to that first question that was asked, if you're an early career professional, something that I've told myself and I'm now telling others is that for every paper that I write, I will review 2 papers for, because it took at least 2 people to review it. So you don't want to overcommit yourself to something. And so just kind of know that if you're publishing, a paper a year, maybe you should be reviewing 2 papers a year, or you could be reviewing that.
And these are important things for your career, I think, because you're going to learn from reading other people's work and criticizing other people's work. So it's a learning process, I think, because you're going to be critical on that work, and you're going to also start criticizing your own work, which is, so you're going to become a better scientist by doing the whole process.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. You get a better appreciation of, when you get to see and experience the other side of the process. It definitely helps your own writing. Josh, I'm going to put you on the spot with this next question. The question is, can you explain the appeals process? I think they're talking about they want to appeal a journal's decision. Can you provide a brief outline of that process and how that works?
Absolutely. So sometimes a decision, when you submit a paper, the paper gets rejected. We do allow authors to appeal those decisions. And so the process that you would follow would be, it's outlined on our individual journal sites under our journal policies. However, if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us at pubs@entsoc.org, and we can be sure to point you in the right direction to get that process. Essentially, it contains submitting an appeal letter and the original article, and then that appeal then gets sent to an appeals committee, which is part of our publications council and is reviewed. So I would advise emailing pubs@entsoc.org, and we can make sure to get you the information you need.
Great, thanks, Josh. We have one more question here, and this one's more about, I think they're asking, how do I get associated with a mid-career professional for reviewing opportunities? So I think this is somebody who's looking to, how do I develop and build those relationships so that, when somebody maybe is busy and they can't review, they pass it on, or they review with a partner. We've talked a little bit about, emailing the editors-in-chief and those kind of things. Any other suggestions about how people can start to build that network and get connected to other professionals in their field?
I think, it's really about staying involved with the society and the scientific community. The more you do, the more likely you could be asked to do things as well. So the more you review, provide good reviews, because there's different levels of reviews. I think it's along that line. Yeah.
Yeah, my beginnings were, I think we already discussed like how I got started. I got started just by, first, reviewing papers that were given to my advisor, and my advisor was got us very involved with the whole review process. Like, he would let us also read the letter that he was going to send to the authors, so we got to see how you write those letters. Then as I started like publishing papers, then they started asking me to review papers, and eventually, you're going to be asked to serve on some of the journals, the editorial boards. So that's that's kind of the process that I went through.
Yeah, that's good. And I'll echo, I think, what Becky said, which is, just the more you can get involved in any capacity, I think the more connections you'll build, and, the more opportunities that will open up. So, look to get involved in your section or branch, or, really anything, award nominations. ESA has a online community. Just continue to put yourself out there and reach out to authors whose work you're interested in. And the more you can do that, the more connections you're going to build, and the more likely that these people will start to think of you when review opportunities open up. So I think that's the end of our questions here. I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially thank Becky, Cesar, and Angel and Josh for joining us and participating on this panel. As Rosina said, we have more Maximize Your Membership webinars coming up, including the Hidden Gems one that she mentioned. I'll also share that ESA President Michelle Smith has been hosting a series of presidential pop-ins, which are essentially informal Zoom meetings where you can show up and ask questions and join a discussion. The next one is about ESA Publications. It's on March 16th. There's some information about it on our website, or you can email us at pubs@nsoc.org, and we'd be happy to share some more information. But that's another opportunity where you can show up and start to make your face and questions and name familiar to people. So please join us if you can. And again, thanks everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate the panelists and all of our attendees. Bye all. Thank you.
Thank you.